Welcome, welcome. Welcome back, audience, to the show, Bollywood Unfolded. My name is Rani, and today we are introducing a very interesting theme. We will be discussing masculinity in Indian cinema, specifically the representation of male bonding and masculinity. So before we get started, I want to define masculinity by author Geeta Rajan in her article Constructing to Contesting Masculinities, a Trends in South Asian Cinema. And in her article, she explains that instead of defining masculinity as an object, instead we should focus on the processes and relationships through which men and women conduct their gendered lives. And so by this, I think she means rather than looking at a character type for a man, we should look further and deeper into that and analyze the relationships based on masculine experiences, their personalities, and even through culture. And so we can visualize this while watching both masculine, feminine, look at them more as an inherent relational concept. And further, the author says that acquiring masculinity means undergoing a process in which men come to suppress emotions, needs, empathy, or even nurturing. And throughout all the films we've watched thus far, it's very apparent that as a man, each of the qualities mentioned, culturally are perceived to go against manhood. So with this, myself and my guest star will be discussing two movies, Rang de Basanti and Dostana. So just to give you guys a bit of background, Rang de Basanti has a complex tale of 6 young Indians. You have Karan, Aslam, Suki, and DJ, each being college students at Delhi University, and they help an English woman named Sue with her documentary on the heroic 1931 story of young revolutionary freedom fighters Bhagat Singh and his companions, who in the end became martyrs for their cause, fighting back against the British who were undesirably present in India. And then our second movie, Dostana, had a more lighthearted feel to it. This was a 2008 romantic comedy about 2 straight Indian men, Kunal, who was a photographer, and Samir, a doctor. They pretend to be gay in order to secure an affordable Miami apartment. Now, when both of these men fall for their roommate, Neha, who's very beautiful, humor accompanies their efforts to convince everyone in the movie that they are indeed gay, meanwhile secretly fighting to win Neha's heart. So this movie was very successful in the box office and was a personal favorite of mine. But to get everyone started, I'd like to welcome my Bollywood film expert, Simran. So everyone in the audience, please welcome our guests. Hey.
Hello.
Get cozy, got you there?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So welcome. Thank you for being on our show today.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. This
So
is great.
excited. This is great. So please, Simran, explain a bit about your background.
Yeah, so like Rani said, I'm a Bollywood film expert. I grew up watching Bollywood films, and this really is what sparked my interest in the subject. So I kind of transformed that into a professional career. So I watch a lot of Bollywood films, I critique them, and I analyze them, discuss different themes, and I write about them. So Recently, I've become very interested in the notions of masculinity and femininity in Bollywood cinema, so that's what we're going to talk about today, more so focusing on the masculinity. In two of my favorite films, Dostana and Rang de Basanti.
Yes.
So I'm really excited to be here.
Great, so glad to hear it. So first we want to discuss moments of male bonding in the films. So if you could please share with us how male bonding was demonstrated differently in both of the films.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I feel like male bonding was demonstrated in completely opposite ways or for completely opposite purposes in Dostana and Rang de Basanti. So in Dostana, I really feel that the bonding of the male characters was utilized for their own selfish purposes and personal gain, whereas in Rang de Basanti, I really see that moving throughout the movie, you see the characters grow and you realize that their bonding was more so utilized for selfless and positive purposes. So just digging deeper into that and looking at Dostana, we see Kunal and Sam essentially living a lie throughout the entirety of the movie. They are heterosexual, however, they lie to Neha's aunt, saying that they are homosexual just for the purpose of them being able to have their affordable housing. So they're working together, they are bonding and forming a connection with one another, however, they're utilizing it for a personal purpose. And then even as the movie goes on, we see them working together to sabotage Neha's relationship, ultimately convincing her fiance's son to hate her, and just causing a lot of issues in her personal life solely due to the fact that they both loved her. And it's not until the end of the movie that we really see them showing a moment of, I guess you could say, selflessness, where they're pushed to kiss each other because they know that's the only way that Neha would really know how much they care about them. So, but just for the majority of the movie, we see them, yes, bonding and working together and forming this relationship with one another, but it's used for their own personal and selfish purposes. And then I guess switching gears to talk about Rang de Basanti, we really see the men working together for an opposite purpose. So it did take a bit of convincing to get them on board to do Sue's documentary. Because, they're college students, they're young, rowdy, not really taking life seriously. But ultimately we do see them working together. We see a lot of growth. They're spending day in and day out together working on this documentary for Sue. It's going towards a good cause. It's spreading awareness about their history and about their culture. They're creating a greater connection with their culture and a greater understanding of what the freedom fighters went through. So at the end of the day, they're doing something for Sue and they're doing something for their country. And then even when things start to get a bit heavier in the film, we see the riots happening in the street. We see their friend dying in the plane crash. And ultimately, they work together to kill the defense minister. And they're not doing that for themselves. They're doing that for their country. They're doing that to spread awareness about all of the horrible things that are happening. So we really see these characters, bonding and forming a connection for the purpose of their country. And there's one portion in the movie where we actually see DJ. This is after they got into a fight and Sue was like, I don't want to even do the documentary anymore.
Oh, yes. Okay, I think that's a great point that you bring up, because actually it really shows us a shift between the masculinity. It first begins with DJ. When we see he really has upset Sue, and once he sees her break down and cry, he has a moment of realization where he needs to stop being childish and take the matter more seriously. So I think this scene, we should actually let's pull it up and show the audience.
Yeah, it really shows them starting to band together and, work towards these positive goals. So
I think it's a good moment to show DJ speaking with his friends and helping them understand the gravity of the situation, and it kind of shows us an overcoming of being childish. And
so why don't I show the clip?
Let's pull it up.
सॉरी तू जानती है कि लक्ष्मण पांडे के साथ हमारी हमेशा टेंशन रही है।
और अगर मैं यहाँ रुकी तो ये फिर होगा।
हमारी बात हो गई, अब तेनों कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगा। सब जानते हैं कि ये फिल्म तेरे वास्ते कितनी जरूरी है। सब चाहते हैं कि जो तू काम करने आई थी वो तू कंप्लीट कर। सब चाहते हैं कि तू रुक जा, मैं चाहता हूँ कि तू रुके। बोल ना। तू घबराना, मैं तेरे साथ हूँ। चल उठ, सब ड्रामेबाज है तो आप चल सफाई कर कमरे गंद कर दिया।
आने वाले 4 हफ्ते मेरी जिंदगी के सबसे मुश्किल दिन थे और सबसे यादगार भी।
I hope that gave you guys further insight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great scene. So next, let's move on. Can we discuss moments of masculinity in the movies? I think this was personally more interesting for me to read and watch because this topic, director Tarun Sukhani explored an issue that isn't really touched within Bollywood, and that's homosexuality. So it's really interesting to see how that played out throughout the movie. So if we could discuss a bit about that.
Yeah, so I think masculinity is demonstrated pretty similarly in both of the movies. I think throughout majority of the films we see the men carrying themselves in the stereotypical masculine ways. We see strong male characters touching more so upon I guess I can talk about Dostana first, and also bring about the notion of homosexuality. So throughout majority of the film, although the characters are pretending to be gay, we see them not really wanting to, you know, act gay, and when they do it, they kind of demonstrate it in a very stereotypical type of way. And then they do kind of avoid moments of displaying that affection with one another just because it is something that is considered more so taboo. Mm-hmm. And it's not until the end of the movie where we see them kind of break from this because they know that they need to in order to demonstrate how much they care about Neha. So I feel that it kind of took an extenuating circumstance for them to really kind of break the barrier and do something that kind of goes against what the stereotype is. Mm-hmm. And this is also seen in Rang de Basanti. Throughout majority of the film, all of the male characters are either shown as rowdy college students or strong freedom fighters or stoic fathers. I feel like we don't really have a lot of moments where we're seeing men express emotion, whether that be sadness, happiness, or tears, anything like that is seldom shown throughout the film until DJ ultimately breaks down in Sue's arms after the riots and everything in the street and after the death of their friend in the plane crash. So again, it really took that extenuating circumstance for DJ to ultimately become vulnerable with Sue and express those emotions and to actually cry.
Actually, let's pull up that scene for everyone to see. I think it's a great way to show how this ties into the reading, actually, how masculinity were throughout all the films up until recently, we're conditioned to seeing men and not showing emotion, but here he's finally broken down and we kind of get a sense of maturity from that. So let's pull that up.
तमाशा देख लो। जैसो की कोई औकात ही नहीं यार। बच्चे जैसे लाखों मर गए ना, फिर भी कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा, कुछ नहीं बदलेगा। बच्चे ने हमेशा से की, लेकिन फिर भी एक अच्छा पायलट था, एक अच्छा दोस्त, एक अच्छा बेटा.
Yeah. So I just feel like in conclusion, like we really do see these moments of male bonding demonstrated in opposite ways in the films, but it's interesting because we kind of see masculinity showed in a similar way.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think those two clips and the overall discussion, I hope it's enlightened our audience to looking deeper at Indian cinema and seeing the progression of how we've overcome certain topics like
Definitely.
masculinity.
Mhm.
So I'm glad and thankful that you've come in today, Simran.
Thank you.
It's great having you on the show. Thank you, audience,
Thank
for tuning
you.
in, and be sure to catch our next episode for next week.
Thank you.